Welcome to Hourglass Cinema, a victims and villains production. This is basically a variety show where we are putting movie reviews, interviews, and much, much more. And on this episode, you guys are going to hear a Twitch broadcast that we did. This is kind of like the airing of After Hours. This is our in-depth, spoiler-filled discussion on The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. But before we get into that film, we're actually had a chance to sit down with the writer Keith Cooper and director Justin G. Dyck behind Anything for Jackson, which you guys can currently stream right now exclusively on Shudder. And starting June 15th, you guys can bring it home and add it to your personal collection as it hits Blu-ray and DVD and will be available wherever you guys get your movies from. Most importantly, if you or someone you know is listening to this right now and you are struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. There are 130 suicides that take place as of this recording, and when you look to international numbers, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. We love talking horror and celebrating in all of its glory. It's not the sole reason we make this content. We make this content so that you listening to this right now are reminded that you have value and that you have worth. So please consider our resources in the show notes wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and I hope you guys enjoy our conversation on The Conjuring and our interviews with Justin and Keith.
Hey, Keith. Hey, Justin. How are you guys doing?
Good. Everybody saw you.
I am well. It is nice and humid out here in Virginia, so I don't know where you guys are, if it's like you guys got like the cool weather going on, or if it's just like steaming hot.
No, we're the sunny tropical Canada.
Nice. So let's get into Anything for Jackson. First off, huge congrats on this movie. We've had a couple people on our staff that have watched it and have just raved about like how good it is, and so I'm just gonna like peel it back right now. This is quite an interesting film, and I have a prequel question first. So the movie tells the story of two grief-stricken grandparents that are trying to basically do a reverse exorcism in order to bring back their grandson, Jackson. And the scene shows them meeting at a Church of Satan. And my first question for you guys is, how long were they a member of said church? Was it prior to Jackson's death, or was it kind of like they were always there?
No, from my perspective, Keith and I don't always agree on every perspective, but yeah, for me, no, they joined that church after they lost Jackson, and once they started, trying to find out if there was a way they could get him back. Yeah, I'm not sure what they did. They may have been, sort of part-time churchgoers, and they at least had enough faith to believe that there is an afterlife. But I think after they lost Jackson, they started, to feel his presence existing in their home. And they thought maybe that could be him, and they wanted to find out if they could get him back. So they went, they talked to priests, they talked to nuns, they researched online, and then eventually they came to the idea that, maybe Satan is our answer. But eventually this book was the answer. And I think this book is beyond just, God and Satan and Christianity or Catholicism. This book is about legend and myth. And it really is. It's just the existence of these demons, whether they come from, a Christian faith or, any other, what word am I looking for? Society, group of people throughout history, whether it's the ancient Greeks or Mesopotamia, that just sort of this exists. This underworld exists, and no human's ever really been able to understand it. But this book at least gets them to communicate with it.
I thought that much.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page with that. Yeah.
I thought that much. I just wanted to like make sure and like see where you guys were at like creatively, because I know that sometimes you have like teams of filmmakers that will try and like create backstories for their characters, and so after I got done watching it, I was like, I wonder if this is a thing. And so our main characters that we follow throughout the course of this movie is Henry and Audrey, and I feel like what makes them such a not only compelling characters, but even creepier than, say, other elderly, iconic horror film people like John Kramer or Hannibal Lecter, is that there's like a layer of like hospitality to them, and they're really welcoming. And then you kind of like get into it, and it's like, no, like we're trying to like bring a demon from hell to possess you and bring back our grandchild. Did you guys always intend for those characters to be so warming to the host, as she's called in the movie?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're still humans, like Justin and I like, our favorite things. Everything should be grounded, right? It's way scarier. I think that's when things are scarier, is when they're grounded. So, like, I don't think this would be my grandmother, but it's going to be somebody's grandmother, and they're not necessarily horrible people. They're just desperate. And, so I think everybody has layers, and everybody has things that we're all not proud of. And I'm sure if they could look back on this, they might be like, yeah, that maybe wasn't our best choice. But yeah, I've always found it way scarier. I find, Jason Voorhees scary when he's chasing the kids, but that's because of the tension. The idea of somebody that you could trust or you don't fully understand is way scarier to me. Yeah, I really like that comparison to Hannibal Lecter, who's like one of my favorite characters in history. They're multi-layered. There's a lot more to them than just this one instinct they had to try to get their grandson back. There, up until 2 years ago, they were normal functioning members of society, and they still had that in them. That's still a major part of them. So,
and two, what also kind of gives a person that's a little bit older a more terrifying edge too, is that person's been around a lot longer, and so they've seen and experienced a lot more things than a younger iconic killer like someone like Michael Myers or just Michael Myers is the first one that's kind of coming to my mind right now, and I think that kind of makes it even more creepier to kind of experience these things through more of a wise lens, as we see throughout the course of it, and to bring it into kind of another. Those of you guys that listening right now, you guys haven't seen anything for Jackson. It's streaming right now on Shudder. I'm trying to make as many pop culture references as possible for our listeners, so that way they'll go and check out the movie. This film, it kind of has like a almost like a Conjuring 2 feel to it in some parts, where like when you look at Conjuring 2, there is, Valak obviously went on to become the nun. She got her own movie, but then you also have like Annabelle, and you have these two movies that have like spun off like all of these like characters, and even in Annabelle's case, trilogy. And you guys also have some of your guys' own ghosts and demons that have their own unique personalities. And before I even saw this film, the one that I saw so often was the flossing woman. And
right.
She's so creepy. And my question is, like, what was the process for you guys when you guys were creating these demons and their personalities? Because there's three main ones that I'm just gonna leave it at that. You guys have the flossing woman, the trick or treat ghost, and then kind of like the Reagan McNeil spider dude with the bag on his head.
Right. Yeah, funny enough, when I was writing, I really wanted to figure out kind of what really scares us, and for me, I wanted to look at dreams. So the flossing ghost, obviously with the teeth and everything like that in our dreams, that usually indicates that things are spiraling out of control when we're losing our teeth. So for Henry, that was really important for at that moment. That's when he's feeling like that's when he's losing control. For Audrey, it's about things just getting away from her, and obviously things being bigger in our dreams they're too overwhelming, and you feel like you can't control what you've asked for. And for Shannon, being suffocated by all of her choices, everything that's happening to her, with being pregnant when she didn't necessarily want to be pregnant in the beginning. Now she's locked up in a house. So yeah, they were all derived from dream analysis.
I didn't even make that connection. That's why I love doing these types of conversations with the filmmakers, to better understand their process and kind of their interpretation of these characters, because art is subjective. Art is meant to be viewed by, obviously the person creating it, but those that are watching it or listening to it are going to see it in completely different ways.
For sure. I mean, but the upside to that too is, a woman flossing her teeth to the point where they thought, well, that's just gross as shit. So that's great too. You don't have to get any deeper. It's just gross and scary.
Yeah. And then too, I'm wondering if you can kind of better explain for me, the trick or treat aspect of the kid, and then kind of his, I'll say, final form is an adult with a demon voice. Can you guys explain that a little bit better?
Yeah, Justin, you do that one. Yeah, the trick or treat ghost obviously is targeted towards Audrey, and I'm assuming we're okay with spoilers in this.
Yes, I will put a spoiler thing in the when I do the post production.
So yeah, the trick or treat ghost is the one who haunts Audrey, and we find out that this ghost has taken the form of Audrey's daughter when she was a kid, because that was what she always used to dress up as. So that is I guess that's where it came from. And then the final form is, I think it just to become scarier. And the bit of the lore that Keith and I came up with was, we have our demons and they act in a certain way and they have their own goals. But these ghosts and creatures, their focus is to find their way into a new host, to come back to the living world. And their way of doing that is by, either having this spell or whatever it is, give them access to Shannon's baby, but they're not picky. They'll take any host they can for another shot at life. So their way into that is by scaring you so much that you open up and you become, your body is something that they can then possess. So the trick or treat ghost, her goal was to break Audrey down emotionally, and then just scare the hell out of her so that they could potentially possess her body. But she escaped skinning her teeth that time.
That's amazing. And I don't want to kind of spoil too much, but to go back to the Church of Satan aspect that you guys brought into the story, and kind of black magic and the reverse exorcism, as we've been talking about, and being haunted by demons, we get introduced to another character who's Ian, and he's got quite a unique part that he plays in everything. And I'm wondering if you guys can kind of talk about kind of the casting process for that role, because the actor, I really wish I had my notes here in front of me. Yeah, he does an incredible job. And when you meet him, he's kind of that shy, doesn't really want to talk or make full sentence conversations with people. And then you gotta get to the last act of the movie, and it's just almost kind of these two completely different characters.
Right. Yeah. So from the casting perspective, when I first read the script, in my head, I had a guy who was 6'5", 220 pounds, probably a long ponytail, And what you think of as a Satanist, but like a very scary, intimidating version of that. Then I don't think that's what Keith was, but that's where my head went when I first read the script. And then as we're watching these auditions, Josh actually auditioned for 2 smaller roles. And as soon as we got him, the 2 auditions were so dramatically different from each other, we just realized this guy is a chameleon. And we really want to see what he could do for Ian, because he just had this incredible presence on screen. And we're so glad we did, because, well, all the reasons you just described. And then, in terms of the way the character developed, he's basically like an incel, right? Like, he's this socially awkward guy. He lives with his mother, and he's never able to express his rage or his emotions or his feelings. So he buries them deep inside. And even when he's with his people at the Satanic Cult, all he's doing is hating on Yolanda for running the place in the wrong way. But he'll never stand up and do anything about it. So this is just him finally being able to be himself and get all this anger and rage out, but it comes out all at once and in a very dangerous way.
That's awesome. And what our publication in particular is a interesting thing, because we create content which is not only introducing people to new entertainment, but is geared to educate and engage people on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through these various forms. And what I loved about Anything for Jackson is the relationship and kind of the tragedy that befalls Audrey and Henry, and their grief. That they in that grief they end up actually turning to the Church of Satan and to like black magic and the reverse exorcism and a lot of the stuff that we end up seeing in the climax. Was it always you guys' intention to kind of, like you said, like you guys wanted to ground it, but was it always the intention to kind of be as extreme when you're talking about things like grief and like how we process it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think grief was always our theme. That's where everything starts from. So everything in this movie started from, what is. I don't think there's any scenes in this that Justin and I talked about or worked on where we didn't, circle back to grief and figure out, like, does this work with this? Is this what you would do? Justin and I both have children, and it's like, would we do this? Is this too far? Like sometimes I might think, I think at one point there was a scene where Henry had a gun, and, Justin was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's like, if that's where he would go. Like, he's just grieving. He's not ready to kill anyone. Like, he's not changing who he is. So it was the right choice. So I'm glad we took those away. But yeah, it's always about grief, 100%.
Grief brings you guys to some really strange places that you're, in healing and trying to heal. And there's almost an extremist quality to, when you kind of find that outlet. And for them, it just happened to be this Church of Satan and this quest to bring healing back to their hearts and their home, really. And I guess this is kind of like an other, like, off question thing, but the room that, like, Shannon's, like, imprisoned in, that's, was that always kind of like Jackson's room in their home?
It was, yeah. So that was once, I think Jackson and his mom were living with them. And then once the accident happened, they adapted the house and installed the elevator and everything so that they could try to look after their daughter as well. So yeah, that was always Jackson's room.
I think that's all the questions I have for you. I was prepared for 15 minutes, so.
Yeah, I'm sure we're getting kicked off here in a second anyways, so.
Yeah. I've learned in these calls to be as prepared as possible. So, like, if I'm told 15 minutes, I go for
great.
15. So, anything for Jackson?
Our next one started. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Anything for Jackson is now streaming exclusively on Shudder. It's going to be hitting physical media beginning June 15th, 2021. Thank you guys so much for just taking a little bit of time talking about the creative process and even the mental health themes woven throughout the film.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That's great. It's great.
All right, well, you guys be sure to check it out when it comes out. If you guys don't have Shudder, if you guys have Shudder and haven't watched it, please go check it out. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Yeah, cheers.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today. We're about talking about today about the Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It is the 8th installment into the Conjuring universe franchise, and also it is the 3rd Conjuring film that we've gotten, and I'm here joined by my main man, Mr. Jason Seaux.
What's up, dude?
Man, it is such a pleasure to podcast with you again. Let me just tell you that. I feel like it has been forever since we have sat down to do a podcast.
Yeah, the last one was my mistake. You invited me because was it a John Carpenter film you wanted me to watch?
Yeah, it was the In the Mouth of Madness, which we did.
Yes. Yeah, and then we didn't quite have the amazing internet we have now, so we were hitting like this lag, and it was giving me a problem ordering it. So we just beefed up our internet. Now we're smooth sailing.
Well, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people that might be new listeners or new viewers, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what specifically, what comic titles you work on in particular.
Okay, my name is Jason Seaux, and I am a comic book artist. I draw Nercoman, which I have a few of the issues here. This is the newest one. I don't even know if you've read this yet, Josh, but I have this here. I draw another book called Jim Bob John, and I'm currently working on a book called Invisible, which is pretty amazing, and it deals with like homelessness, veterans, and things like that. So, long story short, I am a comic book artist or illustrator, whatever you want. It's all the same.
Jason has been a guest on our show several times and also has a Conjuring tie-in. You did the Annabelle Goes Home review with me. That was such a fun night because we got to we hung out, did dinner, and then we stayed up super late watching and podcasting about some supernatural crap that went on. But let's jump into the Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. If you guys haven't seen this movie yet, it is now playing in theaters. If you guys have HBO Max, it is streaming from June 4th until July 4th. And we are just going to spoil the mess out of these things for you guys.
Okay.
We're not into spoiler warnings just yet, so if you guys are joining us and haven't seen it, maybe our spoiler-free review will help you guys, encourage you guys to check the movie out, or discourage you. I mean, it could go either way. But Jason, being the guest on our show, what did you think about The Devil Made Me Do It?
I didn't read any reviews or anything until after I saw it, so I had a fresh mind to it, and honestly, I enjoyed it. I thought it was decently done. It kept my attention the whole way out. So I didn't dislike it, say, as much as maybe some of the other Conjuring titles. Or not Conjuring titles, I'm sorry. Some of the other spin-offs in the Conjuring universe.
So for me, I get a lot of crap for this, and I don't know if you're in this boat with me or not. I was not the hugest fan of The Conjuring 2. And The Conjuring, the first one, is a masterpiece in my book. Like, it is a modern-day perfect film, and I really enjoyed it. And then the second one I found to kind of be underwhelming in a lot of regards. And I mean, that happens. You look at like qualities from like Nightmare on Elm Street 1 to Freddy's Revenge or Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, right, and so on and so forth. And so coming into this movie, I didn't see any trailers for this. I didn't know anything about it. And I really, really loved this film. I have to say, it was really well done. And
it really was.
I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but the previous installment into this franchise was, well, the previous installment with the
The Conjuring?
The Conjuring. No. So previous, before this, you had Annabelle Comes Home, and then before that, you had the Curse of La Llorona, and
and then The Nun, and then Annabelle 2 Creation. I wrote these notes down just for you. Then The Conjuring 2, then Annabelle, then the first Conjuring.
What I was going to say is that I was really let down by the Curse of La Llorona, and so
it was creepy, dude. It was a good creep, and I thought, hold on, I thought they touched on like the myth of it all pretty well, like the way they sold you the myth of it all. I was like, man, I haven't rewatched it, and I haven't bought the movie, but I didn't think it was as bad as, say, some of the other ones.
I don't know. I did a lot of research into into La Llorona prior to seeing that movie, and I was really let down just by, like, it did have its creepy aesthetic to it, and it kept that universal feel that these movies have by now. But I was not a fan of it. And so I was really terrified coming into Devil, thinking about the fact that this is the first Conjuring movie that we have received that does not have James Wan attached to it.
Right. Wasn't the Curse of La Llorona, is it Michael Chavez or Michael?
So yes, Michael Chavez actually
was La Llorona's. Was that his debut as a director?
No, it was. He's done a lot of shorts, but it was like the first time that like he had like a big splash into like a bigger franchise than just indie movies.
I gotcha. Okay, so then The Conjuring 3 was his secondary like step in the Conjuring universe.
Yeah, so it's like. It's like, you have this, like, it's like a small director, first-time director, makes a big splash with a small movie, gets a bigger movie, and then gets a bigger movie. It's kind of like, you look at, like, Adam Wingard is a great example, who directed, I want to say You're Next, but I don't feel like that's right. So let's just say for this instance of this, he directed You're Next, and then went on from there to do Death Note, and then got Godzilla versus Kong this year.
Okay.
And so I was really kind of scared to see what he was going to do as a director. But I am really, really impressed by what he was able to do with this film. I thought that he very much redeemed himself, because this is the first time, too, that it doesn't feel so formulaic like the other films that have come out in the Conjuring universe. At least it doesn't feel like the first two films with the Warrens. And that was something that I felt like this film brings such a breath of air to the formula of the Warrens' stories.
Did the first Conjuring and the second Conjuring, and forgive me for even saying this, but it sort of seemed like almost the same storyline, but like American, British, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
almost it. I'm just saying, like, it seemed really similar. Like Conjuring 1 and 2, I get what you're saying, and I see why you weren't overly impressed with the Conjuring 2, because the Conjuring 1 was freaking amazing. Like you said, like it was really, really well done. So then the Conjuring 2 was done well, right? And it followed the lineage, if you will, of Ed and Lorraine Warren, right? But it just was a different kind of version of like the first one.
Yeah,
but this one takes it way elsewhere. I really dug it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Even when you look at the first two Conjuring movies, it starts off, the first one has them sitting and they're talking about Annabelle. So it feels like a prologue to Annabelle versus the actual like Conjuring film. Like that's one of my only major complaints about the first one. And then you get into the second one and it's they're doing the seance at the Amityville house, and then you get into the main storyline. So you have these like prologues, and then you look at, we're just going to jump right into spoilers right now. So if you guys haven't seen it, this is your official spoiler warning. This film, I mean, it grips you with a bang. Like the credits roll out
from the beginning, from the very beginning.
And what I liked about this one in particular was the fact that it wasn't showing you another case to introduce you to the Warrens. You already know who the Warrens are at this point. It's literally showing you. This one is focusing on one case, and it's just taking you through the journey of the one case. Yes,
I checked out the case that it was from 1981, and it is. I don't know. If you ask me, you and I have talked about the whole Conjuring universe, and I'm sure that's why you invited me here. I gotta say, in the whole lineage of the story with the Conjuring universe, I like this. Like it's a pop right in the face right from the very beginning with that little boy. So we're allowed to spoil a lot now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the spoiling is like in the very beginning of the scene when that little boy's like, you know, like running into the shower, and there's that creepy little like demon hand going up over it, and it makes that sound, and all of a sudden it's just all that blood. I was like, oh wow, this is going to be a great horror movie. And I would have hoped that like the horror gags would have continued from there, but they sort of got you right away. You know what I mean? They just got your attention right from the gate and then just took off with it. It was nonstop, and it was a great movie. People should see it.
If I can play devil's advocate for a second, like I knew to like some degree that the kid that we were opening up on, like this like small, like I think they said he was like 8 or 9. He had basically he was supposed to be possessed by the devil, and when you first meet him, like it doesn't feel like any exorcism that we've seen take place in this universe. And speaking of exorcism, did you actually catch the Exorcist reference in the prologue?
Which one?
So there's a scene where the father that is going to meet the Warrens, he gets out of a
you're
cab.
talking about the lighting effect with the pole light.
Yeah. And the way that he looks up at the house, it's the same exact shot from Father Merrin getting out to go to the McNeely's house in The Exorcist.
I said something to my wife about that because when when we were watching it, we shut off all the lights and cranked the surround sound, which was just a really good idea. And I think we lit a candle to set that sort of creepy ass mood. But whenever we were watching it, I'm like, man, that looks like the cover from The Exorcist. And then, you know, that's all I said, and it was boom. But I love those references.
Yeah, I having just kind of like done a deep dive into The Exorcist, like just rereading the book and then rewatching the movie and watching a couple of documentaries and starting the series, like that was such a cool moment for me as a fan. I really enjoyed that moment, and I think you really get get the grip of right away of that this feels familiar, but then you get out of that house right after Arnie welcomes the demon into him, and you realize, oh, this isn't like anything that we've seen before in the Conjuring universe. How did you kind of feel about the opening and then, kind of Arnie being the conduit for the demon thereafter?
I thought it was great. So I had watched a documentary on Ed and Lorraine Warren, and this case had come up. It was the 1981 Arnie Cheyenne Johnson case. Okay, so the documentary went after it from sort of a media standpoint and what happened. They're not going to get into the possession part of it all. They're not going to get into the demonic possession at all. They're just going to be like, here's what happened. Here's the facts and the justice. This is what he got. That's the end of it. So the take on it here would be the presumption of possession. But the thing I didn't know was that the little boy, this whole case, it's pretty crazy. So if the little boy was possessed, the ultimate debate would be that Arnie said, take me instead. So would the demon do it? Probably, So then that starts the whole thing going off. In reality, when Arnie killed his landlord, he was really, it had to sway some sort of way because they only ended up getting 6 years for manslaughter when he was facing the death penalty. So the whole, I don't know, the whole case is sort of out of whack.
Yeah, I had not known about this, and after I was coming home from the movies, one of my daily rituals is I don't check actual news, I check Bloody Disgusting, and Bloody Disgusting had run a story that the authors of, I want to say it was George, the father of the kid, who was soon to be Arnie's father-in-law, had actually written a book in '83 called the Devil in Connecticut, and I was like, they're getting ready to re-release it at the end of this month, and I really want to read it.
I just wrote it down.
Nice. And just to throw it out there that if you own a copy of this and it's a first edition, it goes for $1,000.
Wow.
And I don't even know what kind of quality it is. I'm just coming off of Amazon numbers, but it's it tells the story of kind of what they experienced firsthand. And what I think is crazy, particularly about this movie, is the way that it kind of has this almost mystery quality to it, which
it is a mystery. It's like a horror mystery. So in my notes, what did I write down? It's almost like a detective film.
Yeah, that's what I loved about it, was the fact that you weren't seeing these characters confined to haunted houses, but you were actually kind of seeing them go out and explore the landscapes. The scene where Ed and his videographer are actually in the living room, and they're trying to find the connection between Arnie, Ed, and the girl, I think her name was Sarah, and what the connection was between the totems. That was probably one of my favorite scenes. And then they're like, oh yeah, she went to college near where we are. And then it was like, oh, okay. I really dug that. I thought that was I thought it was a nice change of pace. It wasn't the same old tiresome routine.
Well, again, the whole case is mind blowing. So if essentially, let's just step back and talk about the possession for a minute. The chronological aspect of it all, or whatever the word is. So if this little boy was possessed, and they have recordings of this, And the Warrens kept records of when they were doing this stuff, what preachers they got involved, things like that. So if the boy, Arnie, his little brother, if it predates something happening to Arnie, you could make the case that something happened there, like Arnie was a good kid, never happened. Then all of a sudden he just kills his landlord, of a demon possession. I don't know if there were other things around that area to make the case for an actual one, but it was the first time a demon possession was ever argued as a reason for murder.
Well, they talk about it in the movie in the first act where it's trying to make the case that he didn't murder Bruno in cold blood. No, he actually was possessed by a demon. Like, this is the chain of events that led to Bruno's death. And we were talking about this Sunday after you had watched it. Like, it's really interesting to me that our court systems are based on the existence of God every time a witness or someone takes the stand. Like, they have to swear on a Bible. Like, that's an incredibly interesting thing to me, but yet we deny the existence of Satan, Lucifer. Like, we just try and act like he doesn't exist. But that's a really valid point and something really interesting. And I think it would be an interesting thing to spend a couple minutes talking about is, why do we think that we can only have good but not the bad? Because you have to take cause and effect. It's that basic principle. We're not just talking theology or what you believe in spiritually. It's you have to have the good with the bad. You have to, if you're going to believe in God, you have to also believe in the devil. Right.
So if you're going to swear on the Bible, right, swear to tell the truth to God, then right then and there, you're basically admitting, because the devil's in the Bible, so you can't sit there and be like, oh, well, we don't acknowledge him in the court of law, but they didn't. They were like, yeah, no dice. Like, they didn't even want to hear the argument, really,
Well, even when his lawyer, and by the way, I love I hope on the Blu-ray there's a deleted scene of the lawyer actually going to visit their house, and he's like, yeah, we'll show you videos, we'll introduce you to Annabelle. Like, I loved that scene in particular, and then it just kind of like it zooms up to her the night after the dinner, and she's just like shaken and like terrified, and she stands before the judge, and she's like, not guilty by reason of possession, of demonic possession, and the entire court just is in silence, and it transitions to the next scene after that.
Have you looked into any of the tapes that the Warrens made on these things?
I don't, and I anytime that there's a new one of these movies, of course, there's always backlash from it, talking about how the Warrens are hoaxes, and they're not real demonologists, and they did more harm than they did good, and
that's bullshit. That's just bullshit.
I personally try not to get tied up into like real life versus things, because when I'm watching a movie like The Conjuring or even Bohemian Rhapsody is another great example. Like, there was a lot of people that pushed back against that one, talking about how it like sanitized the image of Freddie Mercury, and I do have my qualms with the way that they handle the Warrens in some of these depictions. Particularly, I was not a fan of like the happy ending this movie gave them. I probably could have done without that gazebo scene, all honestly. But I digress, because
it's sweet. It's like a testament to his love, like that's really what this is. It's a love story with a little paranormal detective slide to it, Tell the story of the woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of people like don't like believe in some of the things that, like, you look at the first film, the Perrin family have basically said that they've gone on record saying that the Warrens actually did a lot more harm than they actually did good. And I mean, again, not really doing research into it. Like, I've only ever seen these films. I've listened to a couple podcasts, so I can't really say anything. I believe in the existence of demons. I believe in the existence of angels and, you know, spirits haunting us and stuff like that. But I also believe that they have to be provoked in some way. And well, in certain situations, and then there are other situations that just bad place, bad time kind of thing.
Well, the provocation would be the Satanists in the tunnels for this movie, right?
What do you mean?
Well, at the end of this movie, like, okay, so there was a secondary priest, right? Like, when they were investigating, is it the Order of the Ram?
Yeah.
Right? And then the priest was like, there's tunnels under here.
Yeah. So the big twist of this movie was that the big villain is revealed to be the occultist, is what her name is. And she has ties to Annabelle. I don't remember how. I was actually trying to find the article on my phone before you handed the mic over to me, but
sorry,
you're good. The occultist is the secondary villain. She's basically the one that is behind what we see and basically what we are experiencing. She is the one that placed the witch totem at the family's house underneath of the waterbed. She is the one that cursed Katie and caused her to kill her friend. She is also the one that brought in the totem into the Warrens' house as well. And it's revealed that she was the daughter of the priest that investigates the Order of the Ram. How did you feel about that twist? Because I kind of called it, I'm not going to lie, but also at the same time, like, it just felt kind of a little bit too convenient for my taste.
Right, so, like, they needed, like, something, not to blame the story on, but to sort of explain a big chunk of, like, why this was happening. So they made this super powerful occultist that was tuned into what, black magic?
Yeah, like, I enjoyed that one. It definitely took Ed out of the picture a little bit more, which is another thing that I've really found refreshing, was that Lorraine Warren definitely got to do a lot more. Ferna Femoiga, I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Vera Farmiga.
Yeah, she definitely had a lot more to do in this one. I really enjoyed her performance throughout the course of this. She did a great job, and I thought it was really interesting to kind of, like, have a Christian medium go off against a black magic medium. Like, it was a nice chain of events that this time around it is...
No. It wouldn't be black magic. It would still be like Catholicism and Christianity. It would still be in the realm of that, wouldn't it? Because weren't they using, like, symbols of? So if there's...
oh, no, she was using satanic symbolism.
So Satan is like a part of Christianity and Catholicism, right? So it's really just a story about the devil. So
to answer your question, the imagery that she used in particular is often used by the Church of Satan. The really quick aside real quick, the history of the Pentagram actually goes like this, if I remember correctly, is that in the beginning, when the Christianity originally had used it, the Christianity was the symbol of it was a star in a circle, and it was just a normal star. And what that star meant was each point represented God over creation, the 4 points of creation, north, south, east, and west. And the Satanists and kind of like those that were atheists actually came along and actually began to flip that. So meaning creation over God. And as it evolved in time, it actually started to mean like have like interchangeable, where you'd have like pictures of like demons or like ram horns. That's why when people ask if I'm like going to, I'm like trying to show my tattoo. This tattoo in particular, it's an album cover, but there's two horns that are missing, and it's basically a symbol for cutting the horns from your demons. And so a lot of the practices that the occultist actually does in this movie, based on the research that I've done, actually are satanic Church of Satan practices. Now, I probably could be getting that wrong. I've not done as much research into Church of Satan as I have other religions. So if anyone's listening or watching this after the broadcast, and DM us on Victims and Villains on Instagram or Facebook, I would love to kind of know a little bit more about the symbology and kind of the practices of what she used. But basically, from the knowledge that I know, there are Christianity does have the devil, and Catholicism, as do many other religions. He's always he's the bad guy of the story, like just
right.
As simple as I can get. And then
antagonist.
He's the antagonist, and so he doesn't really have his own symbolism or like line of like subsidiary line of practices that he has. All of the practices that you see have been done by man worshiping Satan over the course of time. So that's what you're seeing happen and go through everything.
Well, I mean, isn't that all based off of the past? You know, what is it? Antoine Levey.
Yes,
and like these people, like were digging into like the whole Satanist practices and stuff like that from a while ago. I don't know when Satanism started, but I take it it's not quite as old as, say, Christianity and Catholicism that we would know of, but it just might be. You never know.
So Anton LaVey was actually the founder of the Church of Satan, and a lot of people think that when you look back and you look particularly like the Salem witch trials are a great example, took place in the 1600s. Some of the things that I believe were symbols that we now associate with Satanism was actually paganism in those days, or it was an offshoot of something equivalent to paganism, because the Church of Satan actually did not actually. It's a relatively newer term. It actually did not start until, I believe, 1966 is when it began. So it's still fairly in its infancy as compared to other things like Catholicism,
right?
Even stuff like, Mormon, Church of Latter-day Saints, Mormonism, Christianity, stuff like that. The Church of Satan is still fairly new in that regards.
I mean, do you really believe that though, or do you think there were like those rebels in life where they're like, you know what, everybody wants to believe in God, I'm going to believe in the cast out angel that turns into Satan, I'm going to believe in that, and those people were burned at the stake for being heretics and stuff like that?
Well, actually, when you start to get into some of the Old Testament stories, there's always been people that have opposed God. There have always been tribes that have come against it, and there at one point throughout the entire Old Testament, there was literally a God for every season, every weather change, every like sexual act. Like there was just something for everything had a purpose. So much so that Jesus actually in the New Testament addresses it and says something to the extent of, when you pray, do not babble, meaning don't pray to all of these gods like the hypocrites do.
Gotcha.
So to answer your question, there's always been religions out there that have opposed God. So the idea of Satanism might still be new and the imagery might still be new, but a lot of the course of the ideas maybe not directly to Satanism, but the idea of opposing God is in a religion form is nothing new.
So is that the whole gist of this whole story, that a super powerful occultist placed a curse on this family for whatever reason? It first infected the boy, Arnie's brother, and then Arnie's like, "Take me, I'll start about that." And the demon's like, "Sure, son." And then he hops up in him, and he's like, "You know what? You're going to kill this dude." And then all of a sudden, the demon's like, "Yeah, but you kind of suck now, so I'm going to go elsewhere," and be like, "Skizzer," and he's out of there. And then who does he get after Arnie?
Oh, so the occultist is, it starts with Arnie. It begins with the family originally, and then you have the little boy that kind of is playing on the waterbed, and then the waterbed actually is right over top of the witch totem at the first house, and then so that little boy gets possessed by the demon, and then the demon goes from him to Arnie, and then it goes. There's a trio of demons that essentially happen in here, and
3 demons.
There's either 3 or there's one powerful demon.
I thought it was 1, but I could be wrong.
But you also, I mean, see, I don't know, because like in order to do that, you would have to have again, speculation on my part, but you would have to have either a really powerful demon, or we're led to believe that this occultist is ridiculously powerful enough to have more than control more than one demon. I
mean, we don't really have there's really no way to say what demons could do. So I thought this was one just super badass demon raising all sorts of hell. Like they let this demon out, and this demon's like, "I'm getting somebody's soul," and at the end he had to end up getting that occultist soul.
Well, yeah. So you're right. You do make a valid point, but my point to that argument would be the dual scene in the climax where you have Ed possessed by a demon, and then simultaneously also having Arnie possessed by the demon.
Well, I thought that was the transference, because like when Arnie was like being like levitating and shit, I thought like that was like the transference, like that demon was basically, it was connected to both Ed and Arnie, and then because Arnie was where he was at, I thought he was taking over Ed. I mean, no one says a demon can't, he can possess multiple people.
He can, and like, I mean, I guess I'm looking at 2 things here. I'm looking at previous entries into the franchise where we've only ever seen the rules of the universe has always been one demon. It's always been one host and one demon. And even looking at the exorcism, and based on solely what we know of the practicism of the practice of demons and demonic possession in these movies alone, you also have the scene in the end where Reagan is possessed by Pazuzu, and Father Karras begs for the demon to come inside of him. And so there's a transference that takes place. I didn't look at that scene as a transference, but it's an interesting thing to note, because to me...
How did Ed get possessed then?
Oh, Ed had the totem, man. Like the occultist with the roses had allowed him to come in, the demon to come into Ed's home, possess Ed, and then she was able to kind of take hold of him because of the totem.
Okay. Now I get it. Now I understand.
Yeah. So it is interesting too, the way that, how did you feel about what they did with Ed in this movie? Because this is the first time that he's not really been a major player. This is the first time that he's a little bit older, has a little bit more health issues. How did you kind of feel about him?
If you look at the time frame of The Devil Made Me Do It, that's 1981. I don't know when Ed Warren passes away, but I'm pretty sure in 1981 he started to have his health issues.
I want to say that he passed away early 2000s. So yeah, he died mid 2000, August 23rd, 2006. And I think he was like 80 when he died. So not quite, but I understand where you're coming from in regards to that. I'd kind of thought that it was kind of like a prologue to kind of where the film would kind of take him to be possessed by the end of it, because it kind of seems like the occultist really, she knew of the Warrens and she was really trying to take out Ed because he was kind of the more powerful one, as we've seen in the other two films, and she was really trying to kind of go after Lorraine in this one.
Yeah, it was. People can say whatever they want about this movie. I thought it was well done. I thought the whole thing was well done. The occultist aspect never came up in the trial or anything like that, so I thought it was an interesting take on how it could have happened. But I think it's deeper than that, really. You don't need an occultist for a demon possession. You just don't know. So it's like they were trying to explain it away, It was cool, though. I enjoyed it. It was cool. I could have done without it, though. Like, they could have just been like, yeah, he's possessed. Deal with it. Here's the movie. And I would have been like, okay.
Well, so here's the thing that I think a lot of people fail to realize. And again, this is just coming into just having friends that have done this and have been a part of this. And again, this is, whether you choose to believe it, is whatever, you choose to believe personally, spiritually. This is coming from someone who does believe in the existence of angels, heaven, hell, and demons, the God, Satan, everything. Is that eventually, anytime that you are around the demonic, you open yourself up to being captured by the demonic. It's like being around someone with a cold. You're always running the risk of you catching that cold.
Or COVID. No, I get it. You know what? I really dig this stuff, but that's why I don't do research into occult stuff. I don't do research into Satanism. I don't do research, like a lot of research into possessions or anything like that. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do without that in my life.
It is truly a fascinating rabbit hole to find yourself dug into.
It's a natural one, though. Like if we have the light, there, like you said earlier, there must be the dark, because without the good, you're not gonna, or without the evil, you're not gonna have the good. Like my little brother likes to say, without the bitter, the sweet ain't so sweet. Like you just don't know what you have sometimes. So you're gonna need the bad with the good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dig into this real quick, because I have it right here before my phone dies. I would like to let's talk about the connection from the occultist to Annabelle, because this was something that I haven't read until right now, so I'm discovering this with you, Jason. I'm discovering this with the person watching this live stream with us. Also, what do you guys think about The Devil Made Me Do It? Let us know in the chat. Let us know. Tweet to us on Twitter. It's @VictimsAndVillains. This article comes from IGN and is written by Tom Jorgensen. He says, quote, while the Conjuring franchise has thrived on its roster of colorful supernatural foes, The Devil Made Me Do It takes the road less traveled by centering on a human antagonist. The motivations of the occultist are left vague for much of the film. By the third act, Twist recontextualizes her devotion to the demonic and harkens back to the element of the Conjuring verse lore first established and last referenced in 2014's Annabelle. Movie that I really wish that I would have revisited, but I hate that movie, so I can't bring myself to rewatch it.
You?
I don't like the first one. The other two are great. I'm just not a fan of the first one. The first one I found so incredibly boring.
Okay, yeah, it's the slow burn. It was making way for, what is it, Annabelle Creation, and then Annabelle Comes Home.
Yeah, Annabelle Creation was a great one, and then Annabelle Comes Home was just so good.
In Annabelle Creation, did they cover the occultist at all?
No, so the occultist actually, as I'm getting to, has ties to the original Annabelle from 2014. It says, early in The Devil Made Me Do It, Ed and Lorraine Warren discover a witch's totem hidden under the Gazelle house and found assertively observe that this... No. Hold on. My phone is connected. Observe that this creepy thing is probably connected to the the demon plaguing the house and Arnie Johnson, who claims that, yes, the devil made him commit a murder, just like his real-life counterpart asserted. For more information on the totem, the Warrens' friend, Father Gordon, points them to the direction of John Noble's Father Kastner, a priest who helped bring down a cult of Satan worshippers before they retired. That cult is the Disciples of Ram, which was first mentioned in 2014's Annabelle.
So they were the ones who, like, this occultist was the one who essentially created Annabelle. Or this cult, the
Disciples of Ram, yeah. So from the sounds of it, yes. But what year? Hit me with the year that Annabelle takes place in one more time.
1967.
So 1967, it's definitely... You definitely
hold on. No. I got my lineage wrong. Annabelle Creation. Okay, so the movie, the way these go, buddy, is it was The Conjuring, Annabelle, The Conjuring 2, then Annabelle Creation. And they, in the story, they take place in 1971, 1967, 1977, and 1955, respectively. So Annabelle 2, The Creation, is the earliest one. The Nun's in 1952. But back to Annabelle. When Annabelle was created, was in 1955.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I would kind of make the assertion there that that's interesting, that we have that connection, because that's a tie that, you know, again, you're bringing a tie to arguably one of the most hated, if not the most hated, chapter in the Conjuring universe.
Which one do you think is the most hated one?
Oh, it's Annabelle, hands down. The
you
2014.
Think everybody hates Annabelle?
Everyone that I talk to specifically about this movie, they just do not like Annabelle. Are you gonna like come to bat for Annabelle?
Well, I like the first one. I did. Because it was a nice slow burn. It wasn't your typical horror movie. So Annabelle 1 really got me, especially in the beginning scene where that, like, the blood goes in Annabelle's eyes and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, like, Annabelle Creation just seemed like it was a made for, you know, it was just all about what was going on. Annabelle Comes Home, I thought was honestly, and I hate to say this, I think it's the worst one in the entire series.
Gasp.
I'm sorry.
I need to go back and listen to our episode then.
Well, no, now, okay, so what I did was I revisited some stuff, right? So to prepare for this podcast, I watched The Nun because why not? It has nothing to do with what we were watching, but I'm like, I'm going to watch The Nun. And that's my favorite of all of them, besides the very first Conjuring. The very first Conjuring was fantastic. And then The Nun. And then I like Annabelle. Like, I don't know. I dig the whole series, but Annabelle Comes Home, I thought was just a little too cheesy.
That's all right. Something that I kind of felt cheesy about this film in particular, I felt like this film had such strong legs, and then it would have these like moments where like it would have these like asides to the part of their relationship. So for this one, you kind of had those flashback sequences where you got to understand like how they met each other, and then from like that moment on to the end, like it was kind of like stuff that they would just like bring up like randomly, and I felt like that film, honestly, like going back to I want to say it was the second film. I'm pretty sure it's the second film. It's that there's a scene where Ed is fixing the sink and he's talking to the little girl, and he's sharing his story about like the demonic, and what he's taken with the demonic is he's tying it into how him and Lorraine met, and it's such a blink and you miss it kind of scene, but it's like a tender scene and it feels in tone with the rest of the movie. Whereas this one in particular, like I am going somewhere with this. It's not just a complaint. I really kind of felt like those scenes, like in particular, kind of like really brought me out of the movie.
Yeah, like you could have done without them. Like we know who Ed and Lorraine Warren are. It just seems like sometimes they have to retell their love. Like we get it. They're married. They're demonologists, exorcists, hunters, whatever. It just seemed like they were forcing it as far as like the love story goes.
But I talked about this in our spoiler-free review, which you guys can read at victimsandvillains.net/reviews. And I also encourage you guys to check out our mental health resource library as well. It's victimsandvillains.net/hope. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, because this is the real reason why this channel exists. This is the real reason why we do what we do, is so that you guys can know that you have value and that you have a hope and you have worth. Bottom line. But I think for me, like, I've been with the same woman for 10 years, been married for 7 of them. I had the honor and the privilege. Was it last year or 2019? Yeah, it was last year. 2020. I had the privilege of marrying you and your wife, and in that, yeah, I got a tattoo now.
Right.
But anyways, in the scenes with in particular, the way that I think that I really enjoyed, again, while tonally it doesn't fit, it does warm your heart in a certain sense that it reminds you to just have one person, whether it's your significant other or it is a friend or a family member, like have one person that you can just tell everything to, that you can just be vulnerable with, because that does wonders for your mental health. I've shared it on our broadcast in the past and the podcast, and in my reviews I talk all the time about how being married and even having friends like you, Jason, like have really helped my mental health, and people that, have encouraged me and kept me accountable to grow. And I just really feel like this film captures that really well, because you look at the scene in particular where she's holding his hand while he's got tubes coming out of it after his heart attack in the beginning. And
or she's sleeping there.
Yeah.
And she won't leave his side, you know what I mean? Like, and she says, home is wherever he is, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of what the point I'm getting at is, like, find someone, one person, whether it's a significant other or it's a friend or it's a family member, that you can call that person your home, that you can call that person your foundation and your rock, because your mental health will thank you for it in the long term.
Yeah, relationships, absolutely, especially their love. And they did set you up in the movie, Josh. So they started, like, they hit you like 3 times with it, right? And at the end, they sort of like, they wanted that tearjerker scene where, did Ed buy the gazebo that they met in? You know what I mean? Or like, did he put it on property? Did he bring, like, you know, it just, they hit you with it. And because she told the story, and then when Ed was possessed, that he flashed back to it. And then at the end, they wrapped it up. So they hit you with the trifecta. You couldn't help but be like, man, those two really loved each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And that through scene of you know, him bringing her out of him being able to be brought out of the possession because of that. While again, it's one of those things that continues to show that love is a power and it's a force that can really draw you out of the darkest things this life can throw at you.
Yeah, those two really were like 2 peas in a pod, weren't they? But I think if you put what they did, you know, for a living and what they believed aside, their relationship, we should all be so fortunate, you know. If my best friend is my wife, like anybody, I can tell her absolutely anything, and it helps my mental health completely. So does art, you know, like, so do friends, so do a lot of things. So I get their relationship. You know what they were? They were like ride or die. No matter what happened, they were there together and they were committed to each other.
Yeah, and I also too, I want to point out another previous episode that Jason and I had done was the episode where Jason talks about his alcoholism. And he had previously kind of stated about the relationship that him and his brother had. And to one point during the episode, you had mentioned that you had like just found yourself in like a really low place, and that low place ended you in prison. And someone said, you know, what would your brother think of this? And, you know, I think sometimes when we lose that line, for lack of a better word, that like that connection to reality, or that someone who keeps us grounded and keeps us in line, you can kind of see the damaging effects that it has on your own mental health, and you kind of have to have those uncomfortable circumstances to be woken up from, and to you know, really be saying, okay, this isn't healthy for my mental health, and I need to reevaluate this. And sometimes, you know, when you're in those types of situations, environments can really damage your mental health, and it's about reevaluating what you need to take and what you need to keep in order to grow. Yeah. Relationships are a beautiful thing. They really are. I'm fortunate. I consider myself fortunate with the relationships that I have in life. You know, hopefully I can build a relationship like Ed and Lorraine with my wife. Not that we're going to go hunting demons and shit, because I'm totally not going to do that, man. I don't even want to be in the same room as somebody's possessed, because I'm going to have that Arnie Johnson effect. I'll be like, ain't no demon going to possess me. I will get the hell up out of there so fast. But anyway, we were talking about it. I just don't want to be possessed by demon. But sorry. No, you're good. It was a good time. All right. Well, let's run this bad boy through our Rorschach rating scale. 0 to 5, what would you give The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It?
Can it be like a point whatever?
Yes.
Okay. Man, I would, out of a 5, I'd give it a strong 3.6, maybe 3.7. Like, we're leaning into 4 because it hit you all along the way. It kept your attention the whole way. It gave you a little bit of history, not only on their relationship, so it sort of jumbled you up a little bit. It hit you with the love, hit you with the fear, hit you with a bunch of different stuff, hit you with some scares. So I'm going to give it 3.7.
All right, so I gave it a 4, and I'm going to keep that at a 4 because I really enjoyed this movie. There are some issues that, clash with the tone and the rules of the universe that have been previously established that I probably could have done without. And I also, the CGI is another thing, but it's a lower budget, so I feel like I can't fault it on that one. But still, it's a really good quality story. It really shakes up the formula of this film. So my last question for you, Jay, is where does this rank in your Conjuring universe?
I knew that was a question coming, and it's a tough question coming. And I have my list right here in front of me that I was like doodling and stuff on. But all right.
Keep in mind that there's 8 of them.
Oh yeah, I have them all written down right here. So nothing is going to unseat The Conjuring. Nothing. I mean, they're going to be really hard pressed to do that. The Nun would be number 2. I'm going to say it's right in the middle. I'm going to say it's like probably around 4. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Because I did like The Conjuring 2. And I liked Annabelle. So about right there in the middle, like 4.
Okay. So mine lands at number 2 behind the original Conjuring.
Oh, snap, son. Ahead of The Nun?
The Nun is number 3. Yes, I liked this more than The Nun. And
Are you serious?
I'm rocking The Nun right now.
I see that. So, like, you're clearly a freaking fan, but you really liked The Devil Made Me Do It more than you liked The Nun?
I did.
Well, hey, everybody has their own taste. But, okay, so mine's really close there, too. So The Devil Made Me Do It is right behind The Nun, And then, like, maybe Annabelle. Then the very last one is going to be Annabelle Comes Home.
You're killing my man, Gary Dauberman, man. Man's a genius.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Are we run out? Did Annabelle run its course? Can we be done with that? Like, how much more nonsense can we do with Annabelle?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying at this time. Like, if we're gonna see Annabelle come back, like I want to see, and this just throwing this out there. If this video ends up on like in the laps of a Warner Brothers executive, well, I guess it's not doable now that. But hear me out. Make a deal with Amazon and make a Annabelle versus Chucky movie. It's totally doable.
That would be great. And I could probably draw that, and we could totally get sued by 2 people.
All right. Well, let us know what you guys thought about The Devil Made Me Do It. Where's it rank in your guys' list? And Jay, where can people find you online?
You can find me at The Art of Jason Seaux on Facebook. You can find me at Jason Seaux on Instagram. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, or you can look at Nercoman on Facebook. All that good stuff.
All right. Well, just one more time. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out to us on any of our social media. Consult our mental health resource library at victimsandvillains.net/hope. We just want to let you guys know that you guys have value and that you have purpose, and we appreciate you guys just for being alive. So please consult the resources and get connected to counselors, churches, hotlines, text lines, and so much more. We're constantly updating that, and we're getting ready to do an overhaul here in just a couple weeks. Hopefully, time allows it. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out, talking about The Conjuring with us. We have a brand new episode getting ready to drop tomorrow and Friday. So every Friday, every Tuesday, make sure that you guys are subscribed wherever you guys get your podcasts from. Victims and Villains, That's High Praise, a Nicolas Cage podcast, Coffee and Conversations, and so much more. Jason, thank you so much, man. Is there anything else you want to leave the people with today?
Is their next film a Crooked Man spinoff?
Crooked Man is in the works, as is a Nun 2.
Oh, yeah. We'll have a different conversation about those then.
All right.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Well, make sure that you guys hit subscribe here on Twitch, and we'll be live again this Thursday to celebrate Blade Runner Day, talking about Blade Runner 2049. Have a good one, guys.